Whoa, that's a full rainbow all the way. Double rainbow, oh my god, double rainbow. It's a double rainbow all the way. Damn, it's a double rainbow all the way. Damn, oh my god. What does this mean? It's so bright, so vivid. Double rainbow, it's so dense. What does this mean? It's starting to look like a triple rainbow. That's a whole rainbow now. Ah! Double rainbow all the way across the sky. So intense. Double rainbow all the way across the sky. Oh my god. Look at that rainbow.
Hello, and welcome to the Heroic Review. This is our weekly episode review, and this week we're reviewing Season 4, Episode 10, Rainbow Falls, written by recurring writer Corey Powell. In this episode, Rainbow Dash attempts to win a place for Ponyville at the Equestria Games, but her loyalty is torn when the prestigious Cloudsdale team offer her a spot. I'm the moderator, Deadlyreg, and joining me this week is Goombasa.
Hello, everybody.
PDK.
안녕하세요.
Reverb.
Hello, everyone.
And Swedely.
Y'all have nice faces.
Thank you, Swedely. So we're starting off with our general impressions, starting with you, Goombasa, if you would.
I really enjoyed this episode. When I first heard the description of it, I was worried that it was going to be something of a rehash of the Wonderbolt Academy, but not only were there a lot of callbacks and references to Wonderbolt Academy, but it also did a very good job of presenting its own plot, giving Rainbow some excellent character development, and also letting us see a lot of minor characters that don't get a lot of time in the spotlight.
I don't have a lot to say about this episode, I don't think. I enjoyed it, definitely, but I wouldn't say it's one of my favourites so far this season 4. I think I enjoyed it primarily because of the minor characters popping up and fleshing out of a bit more of the background characters.
Yeah, I agree with so much of what Goombasa said, then he stole so much of what I was going to say. But yeah, and like PDK said, I also love how they fleshed out some of the other characters. I thought some of the main characters were actually written a little strange and sort of really one note with Applejack and her food and Piggy Pie and constantly the cheering and but yeah, no, I really enjoyed this episode as well. It was definitely a lot of fun.
Well, we're on to our the free-for-all section. Swedely, do you want to start?
Derpy. Oh, that made me so happy. It's a shame I had to stifle my volume, but I have no words.
Megan McCarthy made a Twitter post that there was going to be a moment where Brody's freaked out this week, and I was convinced it wasn't going to be Derpy.
Really?
And then it was Derpy. I was convinced it wasn't.
I thought she mentioned something about muffins, or someone did.
She did, yes.
Which...
She posted a picture of muffins that she had said she bought specifically to eat during the airing of this episode.
Yeah, I don't think she's that much of a troll. I think that's kind of a big indicator. I don't think she would trick us like that.
I was convinced she was pulling another fast one.
I was watching Applejack's cart the whole episode, just waiting for Derpy to show her head.
And then we got a crash pan over to her.
And she actually spent a lot of time on camera during the last act of the episode.
On camera, in focus. It was like seeing Bigfoot.
Yeah, I was actually prepared for her to make that one appearance at the entrance of the hospital room and then not appear at all for the rest of the episode. But no, she actually was there with the Ponyville team throughout the entirety of the climax and even got in the last picture.
No, it was awesome that they used her more than just that typical one shot. She did pretty much everything except for speak, except, I mean, that's fine. That's tons. We haven't seen her at all this season, so that's still so much.
I think the cleverest thing they did in regards to the Derpy character, because she's never going to speak again, was to increase her screen time and focus. So she's made that transition from silly fan pandery background character to incidental character. Or she's an incidental character now, which means she's not just a little nod and a wink to the fans. She feels more like they want her to be there, as opposed to just putting her in as a silly gag in this season. So that's nice, given the fallout from Derpygate.
Well, who wouldn't want her there?
Yeah. It's nice that she's back, because she's a fun character, and everyone likes to write fanfic about her.
Speaking of background characters changing their position in the story quite a bit, bloody Snowflake or Mr. Biceps, which I still don't want to call him.
Mr. Bulk Biceps.
I'm calling him Snowflake. You can't stop me.
What did everyone think of the new personality-laden Snowflake?
The new main 7th.
I thought he was very well utilized as a source of comedic relief during this episode.
Yeah, I think that just to flick on the internet, there has been a few complaints that he's lost the ability to fly since he was inducted into the Wonderbolts Academy a few seasons ago. But no, I like it. I thought he was hilarious. He's my new favourite character, yeah.
That was one of the things I noted down. I mean, I absolutely loved that scene where he was first trying to fly and he's just flexing and going absolutely crazy trying to get himself off the ground. I absolutely loved that, but I was like, hang on, you used to be able to fly fine. And they referenced that Wonderbolts Academy episode 5-6 times in this.
Yeah.
So it's like, how are you avoiding this?
His speech patterns were also pretty hilarious too. I love the fact that he really doesn't have an indoor voice. And he's constantly shouting. I think one of the parts that made me laugh the hardest was when Rainbow was floating about, looking down at them, saying, all right, do I have to remind you why we're here? And he just looks up and says, unironically, maybe?
That was one thing I was wondering. Did they give him a new voice? Because it sounds like his pitch has gone up a little bit.
It has. It's gone up heaps.
The original voice that was done was a looped recording by Jason Thayson, the director of the show. He did the little voice. I liked that he wasn't just... They never refer in any way to the fact that he's shouting all the time, and I think that makes it a better character.
It just makes it funnier as well.
Just makes it funnier.
I also love how no one seems to really notice or point out or even look twice at the fact that he's about 700 times the size of everyone there. It's just like, oh yeah, he's a part of their team, no worries.
But Ponyville is such an inclusive and wonderful place that they would never say such a thing about him behind his back or in front of him.
No, but I mean, at a place like go at a qualifying round, I mean, one of the things everyone does is sort of look around, try to psych up, oh, who am I versing? Oh, they look pretty good. Holy shit, look at him.
All we have is a character who just skips wing day and just focuses on the lifts.
What I want to know is, couldn't they find a couple better flyers? I mean...
There was exposition about that. It was right after we got back from commercial break, after the opening, Thunderlane and a new background pony who looked suspiciously like she was using Coco Pamel's character design showed up on the train to inform us that A, you can only compete in one event, B, pretty much every other Pegasus that could compete in Ponyville was busy competing in other events for the qualifying rounds.
That's right. They said they were doing sprints, and I remember thinking, well, that's a bit strange, because Rainbow Dash should be doing that, rather than any sort of a relay thing, surely.
And Bulk Biceps should probably be in a weightlifting competition instead of the relay.
I'm pretty sure they don't have flying weightlifting competitions. Don't be silly, Goombasa.
Hammer throw, come on.
Look, the horse wanted to do the relay. We're not going to discourage him or discriminate just because he's hefty.
If we want to be really picky, we'll just have to wait till the Equestria Games episode and then nitpick who we think should have been in the right categories and when they actually show us which sports are available.
It's probably safe to assume it's going to be in February, once the Olympic Games actually start.
Yeah. We'll see the list of events that the art team's produced. We'll do a screen grab. We'll pore over it like obsessives. So, moving on for Bulk Biceps, what did we think of the overall plot? How did we feel about the loyalty test that Rainbow went under?
I thought it was a really good example to use. Do you want to win, or do you want to stay true to your friends and where your heart really is at home? And I think by this point, Rainbow Dash considers Ponyville her home. I thought it was a really good scenario to use. It would have been a really hard choice. I mean, if you were put into Rainbow Dash's horseshoes, wouldn't you have a difficult time choosing between the two?
Especially since the Wonderbolts are pretty much her biggest and only dream.
See, my only thing with that is we've had a number of Wonderbolt-centric, oh, you should join us, Rainbow Dash, why don't you join the Academy, Rainbow Dash? And she's ended up learning the lesson to just kind of not shun them, but she's learned the lessons. And I mean, I know this was a slightly different framing, that choose where your heart is rather than where you were born kind of choose a team. And yes, they were still our idols and such, but when did they turn into such dicks?
Probably around the same time that Spitfire's voice actress was changed.
Spitfire's voice actress has remained constant throughout the show, save for her very first appearance.
Really?
Yep.
I was going to say, that sounded the same as in the Academy one.
It's Kelly Metzger.
Kelly Metzger's played her all the way through except for Sonic Rainboom, where she was played by the actress who plays Gilda.
I sort of noticed that her voice, like, sort of changed between some of the other voices she used. Like, it went from, so, you're Rainbow Dash, to, line 'em up, you know, just sort of switching between the two the whole episode. And I thought, wow.
I think it works really well. But Fleetwood's voice and character, that's
I really liked it. I really liked it because it was not what I was expecting. And that immediately gets a pass.
Same. I particularly enjoyed her little lisp that she had.
We're talking about the other Wonderbolt with the white mane, right?
Yeah, the other Wonderbolt, it has canonically been called Fleetfoot. She was named in Sweet and Elite, where she appeared as a background character.
Alright, just to me, she sort of sounded like a 12-year-old girl who wanted to sound like a boy, and that's sort of why I don't like her that much.
I think what they were aiming for with that character was to make her not Spitfire. And I think they did very well in distinguishing between the two characters, because if she'd been professional, less antagonistic character, she'd have basically just been Spitfire again. She was different enough that you remember her. Do you want to buy the toy of her? Okay, so the way that this really differed from previous Rainbow Dash loyalty tests was that never really phrased the problem as being Rainbow Dash doesn't know who to pick between. It was that bit where she decides she doesn't want to pick at all. She decides to opt out of the choice at all, which the show basically says you can't do that. That's not approaching the problem. That's just avoiding the problem.
Yep, this is a conflict that we haven't really seen Rainbow Dash take on since, I think, all the way back in Return of Harmony Part 2, back when Discord used her loyalty to Cloudsdale against her. And I liked seeing her being in such a position again where now that her loyalty is so strong to Ponyville and to her friends that she honestly cannot choose between them very easily.
I was going to say, it also seemed very similar back in the very, very first two-parter. Very similar then with the Shadow Bolts and her new friends.
I think this is continuing a theme that we saw with Rarity Takes Manhattan, where we have the character's strength or element, personality trait coming to the fore, and we've got a test of it. And it's rather than simply testing the aspect itself, it's kind of accepting that the character has that, but teaching a slightly different lesson about that aspect. So with Rarity, it's generosity in the face of abuse of it. With Rainbow Dash, it's loyalty is about making a choice. You can't not do it.
And sealed with a rainbow shimmer.
Yes, we had a rainbow shimmer. We now have confirmation that PDK's theory that the keys are not really keys, but some sort of metaphorical object, that's now canon.
Symbolism.
I hesitate to bring this up, but, and I won't say any more than this, but I think that the toy line ads might have spoiled what's in the box.
Well, good thing I haven't been watching those ads.
So how do we think that the rest of the main six were treated in this episode?
Very basically.
Yeah, very, very one-dimensionally, I think.
Well, hold on a second. I feel like Twilight is sort of coming into her princess mentor role pretty well. I mean, she was already sort of a mentor to a lot of the characters, but now she does seem even more so. Like, now that she's a princess, people do sort of turn to her a bit more for advice, and I think she's doing a better job of that, of coming into that role, sort of newly defining her character.
I think that's always been a very, very strong part of her character. I don't see that as being any different to how she's previously been with all of them. She's always sort of been the glue that holds them all together.
I'd say somewhere between the two. She's always had these traits, but I think there is a bit more of a push that she's not being motherly, but kind of looking out for them more and kind of pointing them in the right direction. I'd also say she was very much the element of guilt trip this episode, basically stating to Rainbow Dash, oh, well, you could go with the other team, but Applejack will be really sad and Pinkie Pie won't have anyone to cheer, but hey, it's really your choice, Evil Glare.
I liked Rainbow Dash's reaction to Twilight saying, who's going to eat Applejack's whatever. She's just like, you're right.
At least Twilight was treated a bit better in terms of characterization than Applejack, Pinkie Pie, and Rarity, who, as we pointed out, are very one note in this episode.
Yeah.
I can respect the fact that they wanted to come and cheer their friends on. That makes sense. You had a good excuse for having all the main six in this episode, and then you don't really do anything with them.
you keep doing that one thing over and over and over, and it just gets so tiring. I mean, Applejack with that food, constantly just shoving it in their faces.
Yeah, that could have been done like twice, and that would have been alright, but they did it, 4 or 5 times?
Yeah, but her gag with her launching the food up into the air, I thought was actually pretty funny. That was pretty well done.
The relay seemed really, really short. Too short to ever really need water or food breaks.
Well, it's a speed relay. They were just hungry in the air, so they didn't have to land to snack during the training. There's something I actually wanted to touch back on. Pinkie Pie, Rarity, and Applejack, yeah, they were basically one note and they had one joke and they kept repeating it. I wouldn't necessarily begrudge the writer because there wasn't really anything for those characters to do. Giving them a joke to really push, at least they had done something to be worth putting in there, rather than just saying a line and standing in the background. But with Fluttershy, we had a really nice relationship between her and Bulk Biceps, and we had a really nice relationship between her and Rainbow Dash when there was the possibility Rainbow Dash wanted to quit the team. That was really well handled, and not just in the usual doormat way that we see the character done when, say, Emma Larson writes for her.
True, yeah.
Oh, I agree with that. Going back to the 3 characters, Rarity in particular, those outfits looked absolutely atrocious.
Yeah.
They were lovely.
But they were
How dare
hilarious
you?
on Bulk Bicep.
Okay, fine. They looked kind of nice, but those weren't sport uniforms.
I don't think Rarity's ever had to design sport uniforms, to be fair.
You will notice that they weren't wearing them during the relay. So clearly their display costume for when they're going around the field at the start of the equestrian games. They're not actually practical function wear to streamline them in flight.
Those are pretty frilly display costumes.
And you paid attention to them.
I have to say, I love that every Rarity episode, or every episode where Rarity designs something, we do have to spend 5 minutes discussing the design.
They were pretty dresses and I love them.
Well, that's part of her character, so of course we have to discuss them, Fee. It's important.
And it's all she did in this.
It's all she did. She's designed some dresses and she was very helpful. She's lovely. So let's all agree that the dresses were great and that Rarity is amazing. Okay, moving on.
Can I just say something about Pinkie? What was with the wigs that she was making? I mean, the rainbow wigs, I mean, sure, everyone knows Rainbow Dash is the star player on the team, but that just seems kind of unfair to everyone else participating. It just seems like, go Team Rainbow Dash, not go Team Ponyville. Well,
To be fair, I would argue slightly. She did buy a lot of pom-poms as well, but I would argue slightly that the kind of rainbowy wig things are things you can get in most sporty the kind of ubiquitous, just cheerleady, fan wavery type things like the foam fingers. You just get, some people wear them. I'm presuming she just went for something vaguely themed.
Okay, 2 points I'd just like to bring to the group. First of all, Rainbow Dash, I believe, used the term foam hoof, which made me delighted.
I did not catch that.
And second of all, remember that this episode is called Rainbow Falls and was set in the town of Rainbow Falls. So therefore, any rainbow paraphernalia is entirely appropriate.
Yeah.
Quite true.
damn you and your logic.
She did mention a foam hoof. She said that she had tripped over it and fell onto a...
Oh yeah, that's right. I was wondering what that was. Like, I was thinking like a foam pit that some people use when they're doing acrobatics or something.
I just think that the idea of a giant foam hoof is delightful, and that was my big takeaway from this episode.
Do you know what? When they said that, I was thinking back to the Sonic Rainboon episode where Pinkie had a foam finger when they were in the crowd.
Yeah, it's Pinkie.
Yeah.
And then everybody started giving that to Lyra.
Yeah.
And that was season 1 when they weren't really trying as hard.
Well, they were still trying hard. They just didn't have as big a budget back then, I don't think. Or they were still getting used to working in Flash or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, their latest stuff walks on water compared to their first season 1 stuff. And their season 1 stuff wasn't bad.
No, it wasn't bad. Just you can nitpick it a bit more.
Oh, a character that we forgot to mention when we were all talking about characters was Soren, who was actually a pretty big part in this episode.
Oh yeah, that was one of my gripes. Okay, imagine this. You're booed off a team because you're injured, but there's still a chance that you can come back if you recover. And then you later find out the team never wanted you in the first place. Why would you go back happily like you're all good chums? After that, I would feel pretty betrayed, and I would be pretty cross, to put it kindly.
Well, from the characterization we have of Soren, he seems pretty chill. He seems like he'll accept things. If it was like, well, my team got rid of me so they could replace me with Rainbow Dash. I mean, who could really be insulted to be replaced by Rainbow Dash?
Speaking of which, this is the first time that so many people have sort of known of Rainbow Dash as this amazing flyer. I mean, there is Ponyville, of course, but out of town is sort of like, oh my god, it's Rainbow Dash. And then the Wonderbolts also remembering, obviously, everything from the Academy I thought was really good. Was Rainbow Dash always this huge of a star amongst everyone?
I think generally we're supposed to be treating it as in canon, as we've discovered, post Sonic Rainbow and post the display she's done. People have built up a legend somewhat about her.
With the Rarity episode, we had her coming in with her dresses, and everyone's like, wow, that's an amazing dress. Rainbow Dash shows up in this episode, and everyone's like, yeah, you're the best flyer ever. I think they're making an active attempt to reinforce the fact that these characters are actually the heroes who've saved the day all the time, and that their skills are incredible.
Except for Twilight.
Apart from Twilight, whose princess hood goes unexploited. No one is getting kicked down or yelled at. I don't know why they didn't have Twilight participate in the Ponyville games.
Because royalty is not allowed. They're not supposed to show preference to any one city.
There we go. There's an excuse.
And yet she was still in the Ponyville cheering team.
Wearing a rainbow wig.
It's the tryouts. Who cares?
I don't think the cheering team has to be audited like the athletes.
Yeah, I think if the princess wants to be in the cheering team, they're going to be happy about that. But if she wants to compete and she's at the start line, she says, right, I get to go 10 minutes ahead of everybody else. New rule, princess decree. Like, she could do that.
I'm sure we have to remind ourselves as well she's a terrible flyer.
Oh yeah, she does suck at flying. The fact that the writers haven't to have her fly is criminal, but we shouldn't be analysing that particular thing too deeply, despite our ability to overanalyze everything. Can I just ask, what are people's opinions with regard to how the revelation that Rainbow Dash had been offered a position on the Cloudsdale team, and she turns to her friends and says this, and almost all of them are like, oh, Rainbow Dash, that's fine. You can go and be with that team. We know how competitive you are. We know you're the best member of this team. We've got a replacement. It's fine. You can go. Like there was no bad feeling at all for her making that choice. Do we think that's realistic?
I don't know if it's realistic, but I think it just shows that everybody understands that Rainbow Dash is a bit of a cow when it comes to competitive things. And
oh, snap feet.
Well, if you're friends with someone who's really like stupidly competitive, and I have to say in my friendships, that's me, you kind of accept it and just go, oh, okay, it'll make her happy. Let's just, it's fine.
I do think that it shows just how strong their friendship has become in terms of Rainbow Dash's competitiveness and how they've sort of gotten used to it, especially with her relationship with Fluttershy, who, let's face it, Rainbow Dash in the early days was actually very antagonistic towards Fluttershy, and it took them a while to warm up to each other, I think, even though it was shown that they had been friends at flight camp when they were younger.
I think it's kind of refreshing that she makes the reveal that she was going to kind of betray them a little bit. I mean, this isn't really a test of her loyalty. She was set to compete with the Ponyville team, but she wasn't compelled to. It's perfectly within her rights to go over to this other team. And for us to say this, I'm going over here, Ponyville doesn't care. The relay team didn't care. Bulk Bicep and Fluttershy are well aware of the fact that they suck. And if she'd been, I'm out of here, they've got 3 competitors who are kind of terrible, but they wouldn't begrudge her this because that's the way she is. And the fact that the story didn't turn into, why did you make this choice? And just accepted that she would. That's good because it's not retreading the same lesson that she learns every time, which is be loyal to your friends. She learned a slightly different one. And that's good. That's different.
That's progress.
From this, if this is how season 4 is going to turn out, I'm actually fairly confident because it's treading new ground. Because season 3's biggest problem, when there was lessons with the main characters, it was the same lesson that it already had every time before. But this was different.
Yeah, and I think in Rainbow's case as well, it's also very interesting that you bring that up, the retreading of same ground, because Rainbow Dash is one of the favored characters to write episodes about, I think. She has had a lot of episodes focused around her, or had episodes that co-starred her and another one of the main 6. And she is definitely one of the most well-developed characters out of the main cast, next to Rarity and maybe Twilight.
Corey Powell, who wrote this, also wrote Sleepless in Ponyville, which was another Rainbow Dash heavy episode. She's had a lot of episodes written about her because I imagine she's fun to write for, but she's also the one who's had this other character that's had the least growth from the things that she's done, with the exception of Applejack, who has learned precisely nothing since the show started. She has learned nothing.
I didn't learn anything!
The only thing she's learned is don't try to do literally everything by yourself. That's the only thing she ever learned.
And even then, she still breaks that rule all the time.
Basically, all the characters voiced by Ashley Ball never learn a thing.
One thing that I was very interested in seeing was, once again, more about the Equestria Games, which of course is a meta plot throughout this entire season, it seems. And one of the things that interested me, when they first arrived at Rainbow Falls and they had this panning shot showing off all of the teams that were going to be competing in different events for the qualifying rounds, there was a team of Griffins in the corner that I happened to notice that were warming up as well.
Oh.
Yeah, they also had a Griffin qualifying team right at the end who got the things around the necks. I think with the increased budget, they're actually increasing the world building because they've got the assets and resources to be able to do that kind of thing. The fact that they're there is a strong indicator that they're going to have them reappear later on. I would be very excited to have a Gilder appearance.
That'll be really cool.
As long as they actually do something with it, that would be lovely.
I'm just a huge fan of all the world building they have been doing because we've been getting so many different locations this season. It's been pretty amazing considering that we're, 10 episodes in now? And we've gotten so many different locations outside of Ponyville.
Yeah, they've been spending they've done a lot of backgrounds. That's a lot of work to take you to an entirely new place just for one episode. The Manhattan sets were very intricate for the fact that they were, there was panning shots, there was wide spreads of the city. That's a lot of time to build all those things in Flash.
And yet people still had the gall to say that the streets didn't look busy enough.
I just had a thought. Have we actually seen an episode this season which has stayed in Ponyville the entire time?
Bats.
Yeah, Bats, although that's sort of like Ponyville Township. But what about, Flight to the Finish, the one with the Cutie Mark Crusaders?
That leaves and goes to the Crystal Empire. They had to build the arena.
That was at the very butt end of the episode, though. The rest of the time they were in Ponyville.
Yeah. They were also on a train. I still think it counts as they had to do a lot of backgrounds for that one too. Well, not a lot of backgrounds, but they still had to do some extra background work for that.
Well, you know what? If you want to be technical about it, why don't you just...
Technically, the only episode set entirely within Ponyville has been Bats, because that was set in the same field. So really, this episode showed a lot of creativity. There was a lot of little incidental things in the background that you could draw a lot of conclusions and add a lot of depth to, which has been the bread and butter of this fandom since day one.
Like Fluttershy accidentally smacking Bulk Biceps in the face with the relay horseshoe.
And then he
Yes.
ran away crying.
Maybe they're going to be canon couple.
Don't you give the fanfic and the shippers anything more to work with.
It's Megan McCarthy.
Everybody's already had the exact same thought.
It's gonna be delicious.
Okay. You were listening to the Heroic Review, reviewing the latest episode, Rainbow Falls. I was the moderator, Deadlyreg, and joining me was Goombasa,
Sayonara, everybody.
PDK,
Annyeong.
Reverb,
Have a great day.
Swedely.
I need to put on a shirt.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Goodbye, and keep buying those toys.
I actually do need to put on a shirt.
Damn, oh my god, what does this mean? It's so bright, so vivid. Double rainbow, it's so intense.